Well, jeepers! You're listening to Smash or Pass.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another interview. I am JB, and joining me as the special guest who I'll be interviewing today is Gabriela Jovian-Mazon. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me.
It is an absolute pleasure to have you here today. People watching this will recognize you for maybe a number of things, but I guess honing in on the particular project is Scooby Doo and the Lost City of Gold, in which not only does the website list you as Scooby Doo and a puppeteer, but also a talented triple threat, highlighting stuff such as puppeteering, dance, choreography, and even some acting as well. So I guess in order to hone in on those, was it always your plan to do all of those aspects, or did one lead to another?
That's a good question. I would definitely not say it was a plan. I'm learning, however, more and more that I have this natural instinct of wanting to learn everything, or I love learning in different like streams. So dance was always a part of my life ever since I was very young. Um, but everything else kind of just came with time and also my interests. Yeah.
That's incredible. And I do want to hone in on some of that because, of course, with this being a weekly show, a lot of our consistent viewers are fans of Scooby, but the new viewers that we have coming in are more often than not people that are looking to follow in the footsteps of the career path that the guest who are interviewing
Hmm.
is following. So, to that end, what would be your advice to someone watching this that wants to follow in your footsteps?
Um, I guess before giving advice, because I feel like I'm still and will always be in this like journey of figuring out um the artist life. But I think what I've been kind of learning lately is often people in this world are very specialized in what they do, and they're known for this like one thing they're really good at. And so for a long time, I always felt like there was something wrong with me because I now am kind of happy and proud to say that I'm a generalist, and that's ends up being like my specialty is to be a generalist and someone who can easily adapt to new environments and who likes doing different um, types of things. So I guess with that, my advice is to like not to say believe in yourself, but go with your instincts and trust that those instincts will lead you to the right place. Though for a long time it might not feel like it. If it feels like it's something you like, um, yeah, do what you like. Usually that leads to the right place, or go where you're curious, even though sometimes it might feel like it's not. That's usually where like good things come.
No, that's incredible. And I love the word that you used, adaptability, and especially the way that you can adapt to new situations. And you only really need to look at, the bio that's on the Scooby website for you to really get that picture, especially with stuff like music videos and TV shows, which I would imagine is quite different potentially from performing live. So, does your methodology approach to going into something that you can do multiple times versus you have to get right on that night?
Yeah, definitely. Though I feel like there's just as much pressure, even if you get to do a show many times, you only get to do it that one time with that audience at that moment, and every time um counts. So I don't feel like there's a huge difference in that regard. But I think every project you do requires a different approach because your role is different, the project's needs are different, the team is different. Um, and that's something I also naturally kind of do. I'm always kind of there to like listen to the team and see what people need on like the outside, and then I try to like fill in the gaps or see where the support is needed or what kind of support. So I would really say that like every single project is different, whether it's on screen or live. Um, or if you're a choreographer or you're assisting or you're a dancer or whatever. It really depends.
I mean, just the thought of doing anything live absolutely terrifies me. Like, I'd like to think that I've built up a bit of confidence doing all these episodes, but if I did one next week that was live, I think the whole type of tempo would change. So, like, it's just incredible how you are able to do that.
Thanks. I mean, I think it's like everyone, there's always this little extra like jitter or thing when something is live. But you have to, I mean, I think of life is always like currently we are always live and it's not that different. Like life is still time is still running at the same time. Like and people make mistakes and oftentimes I find in live things when there are mistakes, those are usually the most beautiful moments. So it's kind of knowing that whatever is gonna happen is gonna be good.
Yeah, and that's something I used to really love back in the day when I would watch DVDs and videos, is that they would always try and include a blooper reel, which, of course, it's a bit immersion breaking, but it's also quite a lot of fun. And that was one of my inspirations for wanting to start a show like this, is because from loving all of the bonus features that they used to include, which had interviews with people behind the scenes and the cast, and now I've noticed that they've stopped. There's maybe a few bonus episodes of a show and a trailer, but other than that, I'm not really finding too many bonus features in a lot of maybe the Scooby things. I guess a lot of streaming platforms are quite good with bonus features. And so, on that topic of inspiration, was there any performer or even show that you watched before your career that you feel really influenced you?
Um, hmm. I'm gonna think about this one. The first thing, I feel like this is one of those questions where after I'm gonna be like, there's this huge thing that I forgot, but it is what it is. But what naturally first came to mind was just animated films. I, as a kid, always really loved Lion King. I was really obsessed with Finding Nemo, and I think there's just something really magical and beautiful in animated films that always inspired me. And my mom would bring me out to musicals and to see some shows, and I was always just super happy but almost sad to watch those shows. Like I loved the show so much that I was sad that I was not on stage. Um, so not I wouldn't say a specific um show or anything growing up. But just generally, I think animated films and musicals always like inspired me and brought me joy.
And you mentioned there being, feeling that level of sadness, for wanting to be on the stage. Is there ever like a particular type of production or show that you'd like to be involved in the most that maybe you haven't been able to lean to as much?
Um, that's another good question. And I've again always felt like wrong for being like, I was often surrounded by dancers who are like, I want to dance for Beyonce. I want to dance for Justin Timberlake. And for me, I feel like the projects I really want to do, I can't even name them because either they don't exist, or it's not about the artist or the project, it's about like all of the elements combined. So like my dream job is one where I get to do many different types of work. I get to work with different types of artists. We are well treated and well respected. We get to travel and we believe in the art we do. So there are maybe a few companies that do that I'm like interested, but it could be like a contemporary dance company, it could be circus, it could be a musical. I also like love things that are like big, so like a movie musical. That would be one of my dreams. A movie musical. Like that is something that I'm kind of working towards, but I would love to do one day. But generally, all of those big productions where you have multiple teams working together is all the type of work I would like to do more of.
That sounds incredible. And I was even a bit surprised that you mentioned travel there because I think with a lot of the people that we've spoken to, given the fact that especially with the Scooby live show, like I was looking back at, Instagram posts from back then and everything, and it seemed like every other day there was a plane journey, then a bus journey, and then all of that, which to me personally, not liking travel, I was a bit like, I'd love to be part of this, but I'd also like to just be based in one theater, one production. So, is there ever a debate in your mind of, staying in one location to do something, or is the whole touring and globetrotting aspect of things something that appeals to you particularly?
I'd say, me personally, I definitely, in the ideal world, is to be in one place for a longer period of time. So like traveling to a new country and living there for let's say 3 months, 6 months. I feel like that's my dream because then you get to really get to know the place, know the people, know the culture, also find yourself in this new environment. So I definitely am also kind of like you. I think I'd rather that than traveling all the time. For sure, if it's like every day you're changing cities, it's there's this part of being like I don't get to really get to know these places or these people and you're kind of just passing by. So there's definitely something there that isn't ideal. But the good side on that is that even though when you travel so much, I feel like what's really nice is that you're always with the same people, and so it brings you even closer to that group of people. Whereas if you stay somewhere for a long time, then maybe you might meet other people or kind of, I don't know, switch groups. But because you're traveling, you're like on this bus, on this plane ride with the same people. It like you get to travel to this new world, which is like that little tour bubble. So that's kind of the traveling you get to do.
I mean, I will definitely put you on the spot a bit now with this next question in terms of that traveling. Are there any three particular, maybe cities or countries that you haven't been able to travel to yet that you would absolutely love to, go there?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been much outside of Europe and America, so I would definitely um, like just anywhere that I can go would be nice, but for sure, countries that I've always kind of felt like I've wanted to visit is Japan, and I would also definitely South America. I've only been to Central America. And I'm Mexican and I have family in Mexico, but I've never been much more south. So I'd love to go to Colombia. And you asked for three, so let me say one more. Um, but yeah, I also would also love to go to Egypt for other reasons.
That is incredible, and there's definitely a lot that I can relate to there. Like Japan has been on my list of places to go ever since they announced, like, oh, this is gonna make me sound so uncultured, but Super Nintendo World. The second they announced that, I was like, yeah, definitely making it to Japan. And South America is just incredible. I need to go back there because I was born in Guatemala, which is kind of around that zone, so it'd be great for a chance to go back there at some point. So that is absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. And in terms of places that you have been, through work or maybe even just personally, is there anywhere that stands out to you as somewhere that you've particularly enjoyed going to and experiencing?
Um, yeah, well, I was lucky. Um, Last year I got to, on top of Scooby, I got to travel a lot. Um, and I was able to go to Greece. I do, so we haven't mentioned this yet, but out of the many things I like to do, I dance a style of dance called whacking. And it's a freestyle dance, it's a club dance, and nowadays there's a lot of battles that are done worldwide. And last year was the first time I got to travel for these battles, and so I got to go to one in Thessaloniki, Greece. And I just absolutely fell in love with the place, but especially the people. Like there was just a type of energy. The people were very kind and open, but laid back. But I also got to visit the beaches there, and I felt really lucky that I could travel there, but also get to travel through uh, art and through dance.
Oh, see, you're definitely gonna get some type of thank you email from Millie later on tonight, because just hearing you talking about all these locations, I'm gonna end up like booking a holiday by the end of this. So it's just amazing. Because okay, I'm gonna refrain myself, but thank you so much for elaborating on whacking, because that's definitely something that I was gonna come on to, and I was so scared that I was gonna mess up with the pronunciation of it. But thank you so much for like saving me there. But I wanted to ask, what was it about that style of dance that really resonated with you?
Mhm. So, to get a bit of background, whacking is a club dance style from that started in Los Angeles in the underground gay clubs. It was mostly Black and Latino people. And although at that time what was playing a lot was disco, they were dancing to different whatever songs they really liked. There was a DJ at this club called Michelangelo. I won't get into too much detail, but there's a lot of history um, in this dance and in this culture. And if you're interested, look up whacking, and or you can message me, and it'll be my pleasure to give you more information. But basically, I um, had started street dance, and I was learning different styles of dance. I was learning house, locking, whacking, popping, break, all the different styles all at once. And I was like, wow. And I just loved it. And again, I loved all the styles, so I would do all of them. And I did all of them for a long time. And then when I was kind of getting more into a moment in my life where I was becoming more of a professional dancer, I had a few coaches tell me like it's good if you can have a specialization, because if you're just kind of good at everything, it's like not it's good to be like good at one style. So, and I always struggled with this. So I was like, okay, let me just choose one. And at that time, I was taking whacking classes with Axel. Her name is Axel Minezero Ebony. And I really loved her teaching style. It wasn't so much the style, like the whacking that I loved, but I loved the way she was teaching it. And so at that moment, I decided like I want this will be my style. I kind of just made that choice. But I think what I liked about her teaching style was that I felt like I could be myself and express myself my way. In other styles, I often felt like I was told like, "Oh, you're not enough like this," or you're not groovy enough, or you're not grounded enough." Whereas in whacking, it was like, what you are doing right now is what needs to it's what we need. Like we need every person to be like unique and different. And so that differentness is what makes you special in whacking. So I felt finally like free kind of in that dance. So that's kind of why I chose whacking at that time.
I think it's incredible how different types of dance, it's almost like its own separate language, and when you see the one or hear the one or experience the one that you understand, it just sounds so amazing. And I think that's definitely the kind of vibe that I got with whacking, and the little bit that I did try and research about it, it's definitely going to be something that I'd definitely like to look more into. So thank you so much for that. And in terms of, Scooby Doo and the Lost City of Gold, I wanted to ask, how did that experience come about?
Yes, so really started like back in 2017, because I worked with Mon Love, which is the company that produces the show. I worked with them on another production, The Nut Job Live. And that also kind of just happened. It was um, kind of random how I ended up being a main character on that show. Um, and so that was 2017. And then I think there were um, auditions for Scooby Doo. So yeah, basically I had already worked with the company, so that was kind of how I knew about this new production when it came back. And then, yeah, and then I ended up being Scooby-Doo.
And prior to that casting, how familiar were you
Mhm.
with the overall Scooby franchise?
Really not that much. I think I had maybe watched a bit of the shows when I was young. I definitely like knew Scooby-Doo and loved the universe, but I didn't know that much about it. Yeah.
And one thing that I love about Scooby-Doo is that for all the characters get along and they tend to be friends, I feel like there's one particular member of the gang, or maybe even a couple that almost everyone in the world can relate to. And so either through, performing in the show or what you're aware of, is there any particular member of the gang that you thought resonated with you the most?
Um, I would definitely, I mean, I'm biased, but I think I have to say Scooby. Um, it's also the character I researched the most, and got to know the most. So, but I think just um, maybe it's not so much that I resonate with him so much, but it's just like a great reminder of like how to enjoy life, how to have fun, um, how to be a good friend. Scooby.
Yeah, that's completely understandable. And it's just amazing how much work that both Mon Love and the show and all the performers put into building up the character of Scooby. And one thing that was particularly interesting when going on the website was to see that Frank Welker, who of course has been voicing the character for I think the last 15, 20 years at this point, was voicing the character in the show as well. So did your work on the show ever involve meeting him at all, or was that its own separate entity?
Unfortunately, no. Um, I think at the early on in rehearsals, we were working with another voice. I think it was just it was like a filler voice in the moment before we could get Frank's voice in the mix, but I never got to meet him, unfortunately, throughout the process.
So, for all his voice is quite iconic, and a lot of people do like it, I think, and I can't tell if this was maybe a blessing or maybe a hindrance in some ways that for all like the other performances, maybe if a mistake happened or something, they could adjust their voice and their tone to fit that particular scenario and still keep things rolling smoothly. Were there any difficulties that arose on your end if, say, something happened but the voice had to stay completely the same in terms of tone and stuff like that?
Yeah, another good question. Well, maybe I can explain a little bit how it is to play Scooby.
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Um, so, um, but to do both at the same time, but to answer your question, for it was, let's say, easy. I think the harder job was for my cast, because basically, I play Scooby-Doo for half the show, and then I share the role with another castmate who plays the other half. And so I am in the Scooby-Doo um, puppet costume, and the voice of Frank is in sync with the music, which is also in sync with the visuals. Everything's in sync. Like when the show starts, you press play, everything like the show must go on whatever happens because everything is timed together. Of course, the actors they can adjust. Like if something happens, they can go faster, they can slow down, they can change their intonation, like you said. But Scooby Doo's voice is part of that track. So yeah, so it's always going to happen. And playing Scooby is also a very special role, and there's a reason why we share it with another person. But it's you don't see very well. You're like kind of half blind. It's like very blurry. You can only really see the floor. Um, and you also don't hear very well. So I really kind of have to trust my colleagues, my castmates in everything, like even in where how we move in the space and everything. So kind of same for the voice. It's like I am gonna do what I always do, and you guys are gonna have to adjust um accordingly. Um yeah, so it's kind of more a tougher job for my castmates than it was for me.
I mean, that sounds so interesting. I can't imagine what it would be like to have, limited sight, limited visibility, but it's just completely incredible how you were able to get that done. And I've got so many fond memories of the show, surprisingly, for all like we never got to go over to America or where they were touring to see it. I do have a fond memory of the day that the album was released on iTunes and Spotify and I've told this story in everyone we've done, but I had a massive load of ironing to do that had been building up for about 2 weeks, and I just listened to the whole soundtrack while doing that. So I enjoyed all of those songs. But is there one that stands out to you as being particularly memorable?
Um, it's definitely, I think, just because of rehearsals and getting to do this show. Dare to Dream often comes back, is always stuck in my head, and it's just a beautiful song, but also just beautiful memories because we're all singing that song together and we practiced it a lot. And it's also just such a fun song and a nice message. And so, for sure, definitely Dare to Dream for me.
And a word that you've used there, which is something I always love to learn more about, is memories. Because at the end of all this, it's just incredible to have those memories to hold on to. And so, are there any memories that you had from working on the show that you can kind of share today?
Um, yeah, I mean, there's so many things. Um, I think just because now it's almost been a year since we last all worked together. But this generally just from that experience, I really cherished the rehearsal period. Like in a lot of shows, that's often my favorite part because we go from having nothing and then we go into rehearsal and we need to create a scene and everyone's input is important and it's such a important part of the process. And it's crazy because that one day you create a scene and then you're going to do that scene for hundreds of times you don't know. So that one moment is so important. So I always kind of have fond memories of those magical creative moments. Um, yeah, there's so many. But I think also for playing Scooby, what I really enjoyed was kind of working with the other Scooby, which is Clément. After every show or before every show, we would often like watch the previous show and like give each other notes so to make sure that the Scooby kind of looked the same the whole time. And we learned a lot from each other. And I guess I really like work. I'm a bit of a workaholic. I really love the like creative, create the thing process. And so, yeah, those are just a few, but there's so many great things that happened on this project.
I mean, it definitely seemed to shine through because you may not think it, but the Scooby-Doo community as a whole can be quite an unforgiving bunch in terms of a lot of purists out there that don't like anything to be changed or altered or stuff like that, which is, understandable because of nostalgia and everything. But when the first few shows happened, when the first leg of the show came out, there was so many like bits of positive feedback and so much love that both people that just saw it because it was Scooby and the intimate Scooby fandom that's on Twitter and everything were just so happy with how the show turned out. And so, what was your response to all of that positivity?
I mean, I remember that time. It was such a special time because we were like coming out of really restricted moments. Like that winter, at least back here in Montreal, was like things were closed down. Like we were rehearsing and there was a curfew. So just to be able to perform or to be able to travel and then to be able to perform was all so special. And I just felt even that from the audience, just like being able to see a show and have live theater, I feel like really um, made people happy. But it was obviously just like the biggest gift to know that people enjoyed the show and liked it. And I think the show is a really has something really magical for all ages, and for everyone. Like I think what makes this show so special and why people like it so much is that it has so much magic. If it's through the puppets, through the music, through the characters, the story, the costumes, the lighting, the like effects. So it was really nice to finally get to show it and to see people like it.
And as you've elaborated, it's been about a year now since the last performance, and of course, the website has teased future dates ever since that performance, with along with the social media for the show still being relatively active. And so, as far as you're aware, what's the current status of the future of the show?
From what I know is that they're working hard to try to get back on tour. Um, and that's what I'm hoping for too. But unfortunately, that's all I know.
Mm. So that's really interesting that at least there's still some hard work going on behind the scenes without a doubt. There's going to be a lot of people wanting to see it. And so moving on to a bit more about the future, are there any upcoming projects or things that you're working on that you can elaborate on today?
Um, sure. So for me right now in my life, I actually, one of the things that's kind of related to Scooby Doo is that I am learning and wanting to work more as a puppeteer. The only times I got to work as a puppeteer was through the Mola, or especially the Scooby Doo show. Again, I didn't mention this, but the second half I was Scooby Doo, but the first half I got to play many roles. And I also didn't mention this, but at one point in the tour, um, I actually had to replace somebody else's role. And so I got to manipulate all these puppets that weren't normally part of my role. And I had to learn them really last minute. And thankfully, I knew all the songs and everything because I was part of the show. But I got to be a puppeteer and I really enjoyed it. I feel like it brings a lot of the things I like together. And so right now, I'd like to train and learn more about puppets. I'm also learning a lot about vernacular jazz, which is like um, the jazz dance that we did before swing in the States in the jazz era. So I'm learning a lot about that. I'm digging a lot through whacking. And yeah, I kind of have like my personal projects to do, either like my own short films or yeah, little shows here and there. Um, so yeah, it's kind of like right now just a lot of little things and personal projects. But as always, I'm working towards my dreams of working for bigger productions, as mentioned before.
Yeah, definitely. That like the soundtrack says, dare to dream, and that's such a good message to kind of wrap things up on. And so, in terms of those future projects, is there a particular place online or anywhere that people watching this can keep up to date with that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. So my Instagram is probably the best place where I'm most active, especially in my stories, and that is Great Gabby J, Gabyj. And yeah, I always try to keep people as updated as possible, but sometimes there's little breaks and moments of little moments of break for social media, but that, yeah. And you can always contact me too if anyone has questions.
That's absolutely incredible. I'll be sure to leave that linked in the description down below. And that does conclude all of the questions that I had for you today. I just wanted to additionally thank you so much for all the time you've given and the incredible answers. I'm sure that everyone watching this will enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you so much to the audience that are watching this. If you want to see more of this, then you can follow our link tree in the description down below. And then please like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time.